Welcome everybody to wisetake.com MMA DFS podcast. I'm your host Jeff, aka Wigspliter. Today we're going to be going over UFC 226 for DraftKings. I'm just going to do a quick first look overview. For those of you who are not WiseTake members, be sure to head over to wisetake.com. You can pick up a UFC event pass. It's only $4.99. You'll gain access to both premium articles for the Tough 27 finale and the UFC 226 premium content. We also offer 24/7 chat room. There's a lot of guys in there chopping it up occasionally. I'm in there off and on. Shoot me a question. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. This is a fun week. Unfortunately, I am not going to be going over DraftKings for the Ultimate Fighter Finale 27. DraftKings has not released the pricing for this card. It's I think they're waiting for the televised results of the Tyler Diamond fight. I'm hoping he wins. Kids, he's a local guy here in Sacramento. So let's move on to UFC 226. The first fight on the Fight Pass prelims is Jamie Moyle going up against Emily Whitmore. Both these ladies are I'm going to start with Emily Whitmore. She's not very impressive. She's a decent striker. Moyle is a high volume striker as well. Moyle will have the advantage when it comes to grappling. She's going to probably take her down. Emily Whitmore has lost by submission 2 times. Moyle's salary is $9,200. Whitmore's salary is $7,000. I'm picking Moyle to win the fight. I think if you're going to build like a safe cash lineup and you wanted to spend up for Moyle, I think it's plausible. But at $9,200, she's going to need an early submission victory in order to pay that off. It's possible because Emily Whitmore has lost by submission. So yeah, I like Moyle in this fight. I don't think Whitmore's stand-up is going to be up to snuff. And at $7,000, I mean, if you want to take a flyer, that's fine. But I'm not comfortable rostering her. Moving on to the next fight, which I am surprised that it's on the Fight Pass early prelims, is Lando Groovy Venata going up against Drakkar Close. Both these guys are going to stand and bang, man. These guys, this is an exciting fight. I like the way this fight's probably going to play out. Both these guys have similar fighting styles. Venata both and Close have solid power. They both have decent takedown defense. They both are aggressive with their takedowns. I can't remember who Drakkar Close was fighting in outside the UFC, but he power slammed him. It was straight out of WWE, but it was pretty slick. The only thing that concerns me is Lando Venata does absorb a lot of punches. He does get hit a lot, but he is a high volume striker. So he's going to dish out what he absorbs. So I think he takes punches in order to work for what he wants. But Venata's salary is $9,000. Close's salary is $7,200. Honestly, this is a coin toss for me. I like this fight, but I think Drakkar Close might pull it off as the underdog, and I'm looking to roster him in GPPs. But it's definitely a fairly close fight, in my opinion. A lot closer than I think a lot of people are expecting it to be. I don't think either one of these guys is going to run through the other, but I do like Drakkar Close. And I mean, you might have to hedge the lineup, make one Venata lineup and one Close lineup, for they both have upside. So moving on to the next fight is another one that is extremely surprising that it's on the fight. This is a stacked card, by the way. Dan, the Hangman Hooker, against Gilbert Dorino Burns. Gilbert Burns is a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. His salary is $7,700. Dan Hooker's salary is $8,500. Dan Hooker, he comes out of the same fight camp as Israel Adesanya, who's fighting on the Tough Finale card against Brad Tavares. You know, that gym is they're producing some pretty solid fighters right now. So Hooker has looked fairly impressive in his last few fights. Gilbert Burns, even though he's a high level grappler, he has shown some knockout power in his last few fights. So this is one of those ones. I mean, at 8,500, 7,700, if you were going to make a hedge lineup, I would suggest doing that, because both these guys are going to be swinging for the fences. What I do see, though, is that it's possible that you know, somebody's going to get caught and they're going to go to sleep fairly quick. But who's that going to be? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look into it. This is my first look, but I do like both these fighters. I like if I had to pick a fighter to win the fight right now, I'm leaning a little more Gilbert Burns as the underdog. But I mean, this is just first look. I haven't really had a chance to do very much fight video. Now moving on to the first fight of the FS1 televised prelims. This is going to be another fight that's very exciting. Curtis Courteous Melinder against Max Payne Griffin. It is surprising to me that Max Griffin is an underdog again in this fight. Melinder, he is a tall, lanky striker, very solid striking. He has decent takedown defense. He has 100% takedown accuracy. He doesn't take down very many people. It's more of a situational type decision when he does it. Max Griffin, he's a very underrated striker. Actually, everybody assumes that all he is a striker. From what I understand, he has his purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's been training heavy on his grappling game over the last few years. So I don't think that a lot of people understand that. Curtis Melinder does have 2 losses by submission. Melinder does have majority of his fights go to decision, which doesn't necessarily excite me. Melinder's salary is $8,700. Griffin's salary is $7,500. If you wanted to take out if you wanted the upside, I think I would go underdog in this fight. I think if Melinder's gonna make the fight, make it into a point fight, he definitely could basically just keep distance because of his length and range, and point fight to a decision, which is possible. But the longer the fight goes, the possibility he is left open for a Max Griffin power shot. So, and Griffin has shown that he can stand and bang in there with a lot of guys. Gleski Dos Santos has extreme power. Mike Perry has solid power, and he hung with those guys too. So, I'm leaning the underdog. I like Max Griffin in this fight, especially for GPPs. He has decent upside at that price. It lets you fit in some of these higher price fighters. Moving on to the next fight, we have Rafael Assunção versus Rob Font. Wow, what can you say about this one? Rob Font is stepping up against honestly, like, if Assunção didn't lose to the champ, he'd probably be on like a 10-fight win streak right now. But he ran into a buzzsaw, and you know, it happens. You know, he ran into somebody who was better than him that day. Font has shown power. Assunção is a very, very well-rounded fighter. excuse me. Asunció's salary is 9,100. Font's salary is 7,100. If you wanted to take the knockout upside of Font, and that's highly plausible. But I just think Asuncio is on another level when it comes to skill set. I think Asuncio is probably gonna not necessarily make it look easy. Font is a very tough fighter, but he's gonna show why he's the number three guy in the 135-pound division. I like Asuncio in this fight. I think Font is definitely worth a GPP flyer if you were going to go that way. But he's, it's literally a boom or bust type play. Next fight, we have another barn burner on the slate. Paul Felder versus Mike Perry. Paul Felder's taking this fight on short notice. He stepped in for, oh crap, I don't remember, but he's stepping in. His Paul Felder's salary is 6,800. Mike Perry's salary is 8,800. He's actually moving up in weight to the 170-pound division. Perry, I don't know. He looked okay against Max Griffin, but he lacked the aggressiveness that normal Mike Perry had. He just got stuck into literally like a... he just kept looking for that one knockout shot, and it just wasn't working. And he had his leg chopped out from underneath him by Max Griffin. He just kept getting kicked. And then, Felder, the Irish Dragon Felder, this dude is... I think he's underrated. A lot of people don't consider him, building on his skill set. But I like Paul Felder in this fight. I think Mike Perry is probably his hype is past him, and I think don't get me wrong, Perry has the knockout power to stop anybody at any time. But if he doesn't land that shot, he tends to gas. He leaves himself open for counter shots. If Felder decides to attack the leg, that's going to slow Perry down in his movement, which is just going to leave him open for more shots. And Felder at 170, wow, this is going to be exciting to see him at 170 pounds. Especially, since in his last few fights, he has looked impressive. Excuse me. First look, I like Felder over Perry. Moving on to the next fight, which is another monster fight. Uriah Primetime Hall against Paulo Costa. Now, Paulo Costa he's like a beast. This dude is just a monster. He's 11-0. He's finished all his fights in the octagon so far by stoppage. Uriah Hall is since coming off of the Tough Show, he's very up and down. He's not necessarily been very consistent. He has shown flashes of brilliance and star power, but he doesn't string those things together. Sometimes he looks good, sometimes he looks horrible. Looks like he has gas issues, gas tank issues, and Costa hasn't been in the cage long enough to where you can go, oh man, this, if this gets to the second or third round, the other guy has an opportunity. Yeah, they don't get that far. Costa's just a monster. He literally knocks everybody out. So this one is one of those don't blink fights. I think both of them are GPP options. But I do feel Paulo Costa at 9,400 is probably going to have plenty of opportunities to knock Uriah Hall out. Uriah Hall does have, some flashy striking techniques, and he does have solid power. So it's a possibility at 6,800 he could upset Paulo Costa and hand him his first loss. Um, it's one of those things you never know what's going to happen inside the cage, especially with 4-ounce gloves. So it's one of those hedge. If you're making multiple lineups, I would suggest probably hedging and maybe doing a start with Paulo Costa on one, Uriah Hall on the other. Uriah Hall does have the KO upside, so it's one of those things where if you're willing to do, definitely do it. But if you're building one lineup, I think probably the player with the upside with the low risk is probably Paulo Costa. He might be. I don't know. This card's pretty stacked, so I don't think any one fighter is going to be chalky, other than maybe Paul Felder. I think Paul Felder might be pretty chalky on this card. Let's move on to the next fight, which is the first fight of the main event. We have Gokhan Saki versus Khalil Roundtree. Gokhan Saki is a legend in the K1 kickboxing ring. This dude, he has fought and beat some of the best strikers in the ring. So it doesn't surprise me that in his first fight, like he was a little bit of I don't want to say apprehensions, but I mean it sort of got to him. The pressure being in the cage, plus he had he was making his debut, so the pressure of his debut got to him probably a little bit, but he ended up still hanging in there, fighting through the gas tank issues, and still getting the stoppage, which is admirable. Khalil Roundtree, on the other hand, he's one of those guys where he's swinging for the fences. That's basically what he's gonna do. Both these guys are gonna swing for the fences. What would surprise me is if Roundtree came into this fight with a grappling heavy fight plan. Now, if he does that and he wants to wear on Gokhan Saki's cardio, it's a high probability that could happen. Take him into deeper waters and hope that he gasses out in the later rounds, and then maybe work for a stoppage, or maybe if Saki leaves himself open, maybe land one of the power shots. I don't know, but one thing you have to take into context is that this fight was actually supposed to happen a year ago, and Gokhan Saki's been training for Khalil Roundtree, so technically he's only been training for Khalil Roundtree for a year. Saki had to pull out of that fight with an injury, so I like Saki in this fight. I mean, I may be a fanboy when it comes to Gokhan Saki, but this dude is, man, his nickname is the Turkish Mike Tyson, so that should give you an idea of what kind of power he has. This dude he's a striking specialist, and I mean, he literally is going to put it on Roundtree. If he leaves him one opening, that's not what he's going to want to happen. If you're building multiple lines, I mean, I wouldn't hate you to use Roundtree. His salary is only 7,800. I mean, both these guys' salaries are fairly usable. Gokhan Saki's at 8,400. Roundtree is at 7,800. I like Saki in this fight. Moving on to the next fight is another solid fight. Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis. Since moving back to 55, Pettis has looked pretty solid. I hear a lot of chatter that Chiesa is going to basically take Pettis down and choke him out, which is probable. I mean, it's definitely plausible. Chiesa is a grappling wizard. Um, he doesn't necessarily get hit too much. He has fairly good striking defense. He doesn't strike a lot, but he does use his striking to set up his takedowns in order to get in and work for ground and pound or his transitions on the mat, and then working for submissions. Pettis, on the other hand, if he does get taken down, he's like a fish out of water. He does have some jiu-jitsu background. He does have submission victories on his career in his career, but Chiesa, I think, will have the definitely advantage there. Let's see here. Pettis' salary is 7,600 and Chiesa's salary is 8,600. Man, I mean, I like Pettis in this fight. At 7,600, he's definitely viable. I think he's going to probably keep the distance. He might be able to. It depends on how the fight flow works out, of course, right? So if he comes in and he's able to keep the distance, keep Chiesa at distance, and just piece him up on the feet, and if he does get taken down, work his way back up. It definitely depends on how the fight rolls through. I mean, of course, if Chiesa is able to get the takedown early when there's no sweat, he's definitely going to have a lot more grip, and he's going to have a higher probability of working for that submission, especially if it happens early. But if Pettis is able to keep the fight standing and just basically work for a decision, I think Pettis is definitely going to pull off a point victory. Moving on to the next fight is Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. Now, these guys are insane. I don't know if you guys follow Derek Lewis on social media, but he sent flowers to Ronda Rousey when she was inducted to the UFC Hall of Fame. This dude is infatuated with Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Hilarious. Back to the fight, though. Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis. Francis Ngannou is ranked number 1. Derek Lewis is number 5. Derek Lewis is notorious for claiming that he's going to eat fast food after weigh-ins, which wouldn't surprise me. He seems like he's a pretty down-to-earth dude. Ngannou has shown that he has cardio issues. Derek Lewis has shown he has cardio issues. These guys are heavyweights, man. They have power. They're both going to be swinging for the fences. It would surprise me if, instead of trying to swing and trade with each other, if Derek Lewis tried to take Ngannou down and work for ground and pound, because I mean his top game is pretty solid. And I mean the fight plan. That's what is so intriguing about watching mixed martial arts, is how these guys are going to come in and work the fight. So if Lewis comes in and plays it smart and decides to take Ngannou down and grind him out, work for ground and pound, maybe get a stoppage that way, it's highly probable. He would definitely have a little bit of an advantage there. Ngannou, the longer this fight goes, the longer it stays standing. He has that one punch knockout power. So, I mean, what do you do? I mean, Ngannou's salary is 9,300, and Derek Lewis is 6,900. I mean, if you took a flyer, if you built a lineup with let's say Derek Lewis and who's the other one at 6,800? Like, let's say Uriah Hall or let's see here, who else is low? No, not Emily Whitmire. That's horrible. Yeah, if you went Derek Lewis and Uriah Hall, right? You could literally fit whoever else you want in your lineup, and you just really would just like have like all boom or bust type plays. But I mean, there's so much possible value with stoppage upside on this card. It's insane. But there's only a handful of underdogs that have a high probability of winning. I think Derek Lewis is one of them. He just has to avoid that one shot. And I mean he's gone 5 rounds with Mark Hunt. I mean, it's probable. Let's move on to the next fight. Max Blessed Holloway going up against Brian T City Ortega. Wow. Co-main event. I mean, you could definitely make an argument for it being a main event on any other card, but I mean, with the super fight between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier being the main, I mean, you can't complain with this being a co-main. This card is just top to bottom fairly solid. Max Holloway is just, I mean, wow. This dude is he's a high volume striker. He has solid grappling. Extremely well rounded. I mean, he literally, the only thing that scares me about Max Holloway is the fact that he gets hit. I mean, he likes getting hit. Like he likes getting into wars. I mean, it's like that's what starts his game. Like he literally, I mean, that's the only thing that scares me. And Brian Ortega went in there with Frankie Edgar and was standing with him. Like everybody thought it was going to be like a grappling, exchange where, Ortega was going to take him down and submit him, or work for a submission or grind him out that way. I don't know, man. This fight is very exciting. I think Brian Ortega, if the opportunity is there, he definitely could capitalize on a slick submission. Max Holloway's salary is $8,300 and Ortega's salary is $7,900. This is a championship fight, so it's 5 rounds. Like, I definitely like both these fighters. They're both very durable. I think it's going to be a slugfest. Wow, if I had to pick a winner right now, I'm gonna go with Max Holloway. I think Max Holloway is probably. I think he's just gonna be able to grind him out on the feet and just for 5 rounds, and just as long as he doesn't put himself in a predicament where maybe leaves his head open, maybe up against the cage and he maybe drops down for a single or a double leg or something. That's the only thing that scares me, is because if Brian T City sees that opening like he did with Cub Swanson. Like Cub Swanson, like literally dropped down for a single or a double leg up against the cage, and it was like literally a split second. He jumped on that guillotine, and that's all it takes for him. He just capitalizes on those little windows of opportunity. A lot of fighters don't necessarily see that, so they miss it. I think Ortega's on another level when it comes to his fight IQ. He's up there with some of the best guys when it comes to fight IQ, especially as the fight is flowing. You're talking about milliseconds when it comes to making a decision on whether or not to do something or not. It's just crazy. But yeah, this is going to be one of those fights where I think you're going to have both sides. I mean, if you start your lineup with Max Holloway and work your way around that, and then you start another lineup with Brian Ortega and you work your way with that, I wouldn't fault you. There's nothing wrong with that. I think definitely MMA is one of those things where you have to build multi-lineups. If you're doing a single lineup, I mean, you could start with either one of these guys, but I think if you're building one lineup, maybe look at Max Holloway. And go from there. Now moving on to the main events, we have Stipe Miocic versus Daniel DC Cormier. Champ versus champ, super fight of the year. Like, oh my goodness, like what more can you ask for? This is like Christmas in July. I mean, wow. Like, this is amazing. Like, I can't wait. I'm probably gonna call into work. I have to work that day, but I think I'm gonna call in. I'm probably gonna um, come down with the 24-hour sickness. But this is gonna be one of those fights where you don't want to miss. Um, Cormier, his salary is 7,300. Stipe Miocic is 8,900. Um, I think what a lot of people are forgetting is that Daniel Cormier is undefeated as a heavyweight. I believe he's like 10 or 11-0. Um, he has some insane statistics when it comes to his heavyweight matches. He's taken down some fairly large opponents, and the only reason he left the heavyweight division is because he didn't want to fight Cain Velasquez as the champ. He didn't want to fight his training partner and friends for the strap. Now, Stipe Miocic is literally like the average man's man. Like, this dude, he's very if you look at him, he's very unassuming. It's not like he's a Brock Lesnar type body. I mean, the dude's big. He's a solid looking guy, but I mean, he's a firefighter by trade. He's just a hard working, hard nosed grinder, man. Like, this dude is a monster. Like, both these guys have the opportunity to finish each other. I don't see DC getting finished. I think this is going to be a fight. I think DC is probably going to land multiple takedowns. I think this is just going to be a back and forth battle. I'm going to go with the upset here. I think Daniel Cormier is going to pull off the victory. And yeah, man, this is going to be a good fight. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm at a loss of words. Like, I just want to just crack open a beer, throw some meat on the grill, and wait for this fight to just to kick up. But I think a lot of people are overlooking Cormier, but you can't count out Stipe. Stipe has proven why he is the current heavyweight champion. And DC. I mean, if you wanted to do the cons on DC, he's getting older. He has hinted at he only has a few fights left. Because once that starts creeping in, that means your mentality is not necessarily lacking. But I think DC is a very cerebral type fighter, so he takes everything into context. I think when he's going into fighting, so I do like DC to win the fight, but I mean, Stipe is on another level. I'm not waffling. Like I said, my pick is DC, but Stipe is one of those guys, like, you can't really count him out. That does it for the UFC 226 first look overview for DraftKings. If you want an in-depth breakdown of the card, we're going to have that on the website. I do a full fight breakdown written article. We also will have 2 live streams this week. Friday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, will be the Tough 27 finale live stream. And then the Saturday morning live stream will be for UFC 226 at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So that would be 8:30 Pacific. And it'll be all about answering questions. I'll have watched plenty of video of each fight by then. The only challenge with the Tough 27, of course, is they haven't released any of the pricing. So, I mean, I can't give you any type of who I'm gonna roster without any pricing. So that's probably after tonight's show, I believe. I think they're waiting for the Tough 27 aired results of the Tyler Diamond fight. But with that being said, if you are not a subscriber, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Turn on notifications so whenever we post new videos, you will be alerted of it. If you're listening to us on Podbean, if you're listening to us on iTunes, leave us those 5-star reviews. I really appreciate you listening to me talk about MMA and DFS. It's two of my favorite things in the world besides barbecuing and my family. I love all you guys out there, by the way. If you guys have any questions, or if there's anything you'd like for me to do different next time, or you'd like me to work on, leave it down in the comments section. I'll be more than happy to engage with you on that. But make sure you hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate it. You can hit me up on Twitter at JEFPO. That's pretty much it. And like I said, if you are not already a subscriber to WiseTake.com, this week would be a good week for you to get in on the UFC event pass. It's only $4.99. You'll gain access to both premium articles. You'll have access to the both of the live streams. You'll have access to the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week chat room. Sorry, brain spasm there. I look forward to seeing you guys in the live stream. I appreciate the time, and I thank you guys for taking the time out to listening to me talk about MMA and DFS. As always, be safe, have fun, and make that money.
Yes.